we have some absolutely breaking, earth-shattering, gut-wrenching news that just dropped moments ago. And folks, what I'm about to reveal is not only absolutely sickening, but quite frankly, completely delusional. A massive new report has emerged surrounding Kyle Tucker that nobody saw coming. And the offer that's been leaked is so ridiculous, so absurdly high that it changes everything we thought we knew about this free agency pursuit. The stove isn't just hot anymore, it's a raging inferno that's about to consume everything in its path. We're going to break down this insane new offer that has the entire baseball world absolutely losing their minds. Discuss what these reports mean for the Toronto Blue Jays championship aspirations. Analyze whether Tucker will actually take this deal or hold out for long-term security. And explore a ton of other critical updates surrounding the team that you absolutely cannot afford to miss. You're going to want to stay tuned all the way to the very end of this video because brand new information is dropping by the minute and a decision seems to be coming very, very soon. Before we dive headfirst into this chaos, a very quick reminder to hit that subscribe button right now. You guys have been absolute beasts with your support, and with a major decision seemingly imminent regarding Kyle Tucker's future. You want to make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss the moment this breaks. The support from this community has been incredible, and we're going to ride this roller coaster together all the way to the finish line. Now, let's dive right into the absolute madness. I had a video drop this morning about Kyle Tucker and Bo Bichette and how things are starting to get legitimately scary for Blue Jays fans as Tucker's decision-making process continues dragging on without resolution. But a brand new bombshell report has just dropped from Robert Murray, one of the most credible and well-connected insiders in baseball, revealing information that's going to make your jaw hit the floor. Are you ready for this? The New York Mets have offered $50 million per year on a short-term contract to Kyle Tucker. Yes, you read that correctly. $50 million annually. That's not a typo. That's not a mistake. It's not me exaggerating for effect. That's the actual reported offer that the Mets have put on the table. Throughout this afternoon, I've been obsessively tracking every development, refreshing Twitter constantly, monitoring multiple sources. And there were various reports and rumors circulating about how the Mets had offered a massive amount of money to Tucker. But the specific numbers weren't confirmed initially. We were hearing whispers of $100 million, $120 million, $140 million total, but nobody could pin down the exact structure. Then Robert Murray drops the absolute nuke with his bombshell confirmation, $50 million per year. And based on what multiple sources are now speculating, that offer appears to be structured over 3 years, which would total $150 million. The market is officially heating up to nuclear levels. And I genuinely suspect that a final decision from Kyle Tucker is imminent at this point. The Mets have now entered themselves as not just participants but as serious, legitimate, terrifying players in this sweepstakes with an offer so absurd that it changes the entire dynamic. This is a crazy, insane, completely bonkers offer. And it's absolutely sickening to watch as a Blue Jays fan who desperately wants Tucker in Toronto. But if we're being completely honest, this potential outcome always seemed like a realistic possibility given Steve Cohen's unlimited resources and willingness to spend whatever it takes. Ben Nicholson-Smith, who covers the Blue Jays extensively, immediately characterized this as a significant development in the Kyle Tucker sweepstakes. The Mets, Blue Jays, and Dodgers are all known to have serious interest, while the Yankees and potentially other mystery teams may be lurking in the background waiting to pounce. This is getting scary now, folks, because the dominoes are falling in ways that could spell disaster for Toronto. There are increasing reports and, I'll have a full video breaking this down tomorrow morning, that Bo Bichette is going to be joining the Philadelphia Phillies. The rumors and credible reporting surrounding that situation are intensifying by the hour. So if Bo goes to Philly and Tucker goes to the Mets, that represents a nightmare scenario for the Blue Jays. Not the absolute worst-case scenario because at least neither player would be in the AL East, terrorizing Toronto 19 times per season. But it's still a very, very scary possibility. Now, I don't want to sit here and pretend that this Blue Jays team hasn't made a ton of genuinely excellent additions this offseason. They've added Dylan Cease, Shane Bieber, Kazuma Okamoto, and various other pieces that significantly improve the roster. But losing out on both Tucker and Bo after being so heavily connected to both players would absolutely not be what you want to hear as the culmination of your offseason efforts. I was genuinely hoping we would continue hearing crickets and silence surrounding other teams' offers to Tucker. That Toronto's reported willingness to go longer would be enough to get this done without serious competition. But the Mets just put out a $50 million per year offer, and that's now confirmed by multiple credible sources. That is an absolutely staggering amount of money that changes every calculation and assumption we've been making. This situation was first hinted at in a report from Will Salmon of The Athletic that dropped a couple hours before. It's Robert Murray's confirmation, Salmon wrote. If the New York Mets are in the range of $120 to $140 million for Kyle Tucker, as league sources suggested is the case, the question is whether that will be enough. It is possible that the Toronto Blue Jays or the Los Angeles Dodgers, the two other main contenders for Tucker, offer more total money than New York. It is also possible that the Mets could go even higher. But they've shown a desire so far this offseason to act with some level of discipline. Well, apparently their version of financial discipline is $50 million per year for somebody who, while elite, is probably not actually worth $50 million annually based on any objective evaluation of market value. But at the same time, if this offer is truly structured as a short-term deal over just 3 years, it's actually not a terrible proposition for the New York Mets from a risk management perspective. Think about it this way. If Tucker accepts 3 years and $150 million, the Mets get his age 29, 30, and 31 seasons, which should be peak production years. They're not committed beyond that if his performance declines. They're not paying him into his mid-30s when injury risk increases dramatically. And they maintain financial flexibility to pursue other stars when Tucker's deal expires. It's crazy. It's delusional. It's sickening to watch as a Blue Jays fan. But I have to admit it's actually a clever deal structure for the Mets if they can convince Tucker to accept it. The annual salary is absurd, but the total commitment and risk are actually quite manageable for a team with Steve Cohen's resources. Now, the fundamental question that will determine Tucker's entire future comes down to a simple choice. Does he want long-term security with guaranteed money extending well into his 30s? Or does he want short-term maximized annual value betting on himself to cash in again before age 32? If Tucker prioritizes long-term security and generational wealth locked in for a decade or more, the Blue Jays are clearly and obviously his best play. Toronto has reportedly been willing to go 8, 10, possibly even 12 years at a slightly lower annual salary to give Tucker that extended security. But if Tucker wants a short-term deal that allows him to re-enter free agency while still in his prime, it seems like the Mets just stepped up in a massive way with an offer that's going to be very difficult for any other team to match on an annual basis. The Dodgers are still lurking and have been rumored for a while to prefer a short-term structure, but I genuinely don't think even the Dodgers are going to step up and offer $50 million per year. That's Steve Cohen money. That's I don't care what it costs money. The question now becomes, what are the Toronto Blue Jays going to do if they lose both Bichette and Kyle Tucker? Maybe they just decide to roll with the team they currently have, and will inevitably get comments from Ross Atkins saying they're comfortable with their roster construction, which honestly makes some sense. They are legitimately a very good team even without adding Tucker. Ben Nicholson-Smith was actually ahead of the curve on this development, reporting a couple weeks ago, or it might have even been last week, that the Mets were kind of the sneaky dark horse team that could emerge and shake up the Tucker sweepstakes. The Blue Jays were considered heavy favorites to land Tucker for quite a while based on all the reporting and insider information. But I think right now, at this very moment, the Mets have to be considered heavy favorites after dropping this nuclear offer. They've completely swooped in and changed the entire landscape. Here's an excellent point raised by analyst Zach Marshall that perfectly captures the confusion many people feel about Tucker potentially accepting a short-term deal. I just don't understand why Tucker would want to sign a short-term deal. CBA coming, has a baby on the way, and he's 28 years old. Why at 28 are you looking to sign a short-term deal coming off of 5 straight 4+ wins above replacement seasons according to fans? Those weren't fluke injuries either. That's a genuinely excellent question that gets to the heart of this entire situation. Why would Kyle Tucker, who's been remarkably healthy throughout his career, who's consistently produced at an elite level, who's only 28 years old, who has a baby on the way and growing family to think about, why would he accept a short-term deal when he could lock in guaranteed money for the next decade plus? There's legitimate risk in taking the short-term money. What if he suffers a career-altering injury during those 3 years? What if his production declines unexpectedly? What if the free agent market is terrible when he hits it again at age 31 or 32? Why take those risks when teams are reportedly willing to give him 8 to 10-year commitments right now? Now, at this reported 120 to 140 million number, which we're now assuming is 3 years and 150 million unless it's structured as a 2-year deal. Though I'm operating under the 3-year assumption, maybe, Tucker's thinking involves taking the short-term money with opt-outs after each season. That would give him maximum flexibility where, if he has a great year, he can opt out immediately and re-enter free agency to sign an even bigger deal in what's projected to be a relatively weak free agency class next year. It's probably a 50-50 proposition in Tucker's mind between long-term security and short-term maximized earnings. 150 million total over 3 years with opt-outs after each season means if he performs at an elite level, he can potentially make that 150 million plus another massive contract before he turns 32. That's how you maximize lifetime earnings if everything breaks right. But it might now be on the Blue Jays to step up significantly from whatever their current offer is. There have been some rumors floating around, and I want to emphasize these are just rumors from sources without confirmed credibility. So take this with a massive grain of salt, digesting that the Jays have offered the largest total contract in terms of length and overall dollars, but not the highest average annual value? I'm bringing this up not because I can verify its accuracy, but because I want to give you guys all the information that's circulating so you can make informed assessments. It seems based on various whispers that the Blue Jays might have the most total money on the table. But at $50 million per year from the Mets, I was desperately hoping it wouldn't even reach this point because it's genuinely terrifying for Toronto's chances. If Tucker definitively wants a short-term deal to maximize his annual earnings, the Blue Jays probably aren't his answer. They're built for the long-term commitment, not the short-term overpay. However, Michael Mayer, a very reputable insider who primarily covers the Mets and Yankees, came out with analysis suggesting this might not be the death blow it appears to be. Mayer stated, "If this Mets offer comes in at $150 million over 3 years, I don't believe that is enough to seal the deal. I could be proven wrong, and I've been wrong before, but the Dodgers are still hanging around at that money level, and Toronto has shown willingness to go significantly longer. A strong offer from the Mets nonetheless, so it's not the end of the world, and I don't want this video to seem like it's all over and the Blue Jays have no chance. I still genuinely think there's a very good chance Tucker joins Toronto. If he ultimately decides he wants the long-term security and guaranteed money, but no matter what happens at this point, the Blue Jays face serious, legitimate, well-funded competition, and it's no longer the situation from a week ago when Toronto was the only team that had officially met with Tucker in person at the Florida complex before Christmas. Now the Mets have met with Tucker, reportedly over Zoom based on what we're hearing. The Dodgers have almost certainly met with him as well, though there's no confirmation whether that was virtual or in person. This is terrifying, quite frankly, and the uncertainty is killing Blue Jays fans who desperately want this saga to end with Tucker in Toronto. It almost seems like canned. I don't have the exact tweet in front of me to show you, but Brandon, the guy who originally broke the George Springer signing news back in 2021, suggested this could be a last-ditch effort from Scott Boras, a strategic leak designed to pressure one of the teams, likely Toronto, to increase their offer. Think about it, if the Blue Jays are currently at something like $300 million over 10 years, which seems a bit light, but let's use that as a hypothetical, and Tucker is pushing for $360 or $380 million, maybe this Mets leak is the leverage play Boras needs to get Ross Atkins and the Blue Jays to go up to Tucker's desired number. If that's the case, I genuinely hope Toronto steps up and gets this done. Yes, it's scary to commit that kind of money. Yes, it's a risk. But Tucker is legitimately one of the absolute best players in baseball. He would instantly make the Blue Jays a legitimate World Series favorite, or at minimum a clear American League favorite alongside the Yankees and Orioles. Let's look at Tucker's actual market value according to Spotrac projections to ground ourselves in reality. According to their calculations, $39.9 million average annual salary is the estimated fair market value, which would rank 4th highest in Major League Baseball. Their projected contract is 8 years and $319 million, which puts Tucker in extremely elite company. Some comparable contracts they cite include Corey Seager, Juan Soto, Jose Ramirez, and Rafael Devers. These are all legitimate superstars who got paid accordingly. And I would do a deal in that range all day long without hesitation. I think Tucker's actual market value is probably closer to 8 years and $350 million, or 8 years and $360 million given the current market conditions and what we've seen other stars receive. Maybe what's happening right now is Scott Boras using the leverage of the Mets' short-term offer to tell Toronto, if you don't meet Tucker's desired number on a long-term deal, we're going to accept the Mets' 3 years and $150 million cash in immediately. And then try again in free agency next year when Tucker will still only be That's nuclear level negotiating leverage that could force the Blue Jays' hand. The pressure is absolutely ramping up to unbearable levels at this point. As new reports drop, we're going to keep you updated constantly with analysis and reaction. But let me know down below in the comments, if you were running the Blue Jays, would you offer 3 years and $150 million to match the Mets? I think I personally would, though I suspect the Blue Jays won't because they're committed to the long-term structure. And the bigger question, do you think Tucker ultimately signs with the Blue Jays? Because when you look at the way this team is currently constructed, I've been using this Zips projection graphic extensively. They already have a very good roster that's significantly better than last year overall. At least on paper at the start of the season, I can't definitively say they're much better than last year because Bo Bichette will apparently be gone, which is a massive loss. But they're very similar in terms of total projected wins, and you could argue they've added some extremely key pieces. Okamoto is obviously the biggest position player addition, while Dylan Cease and Cody Ponce are going to sneakily add almost 5 wins above replacement combined, which mathematically replaces Bo's production if you want to use the logic that Ross Atkins sometimes employs. But I desperately want to see them add one more major impact player to put this roster over the top. If they add Kyle Tucker, you're completely locked in as a championship contender. They could theoretically still add Bo Bichette if his market collapses and he's willing to take less money. But I think that's increasingly unlikely at this stage. It seems almost inevitable that Bo is joining the Phillies, and I'll have a full video breaking that down tomorrow morning. So let me know down below what your thoughts are on this entire chaotic situation. Do you think the Mets' offer is real or just leverage? Would you want the Blue Jays to match it? Do you believe Tucker ultimately wants long-term security or short-term maximized earnings? A final decision is coming this week. I genuinely believe that. We're approaching the endgame of this saga, and it's going to be resolved one way or another very soon. We'll keep you updated every single step of the way with immediate analysis when news breaks. And it just got very, very scary very quickly. The Mets dropping $50 million per year changes everything, forces Toronto to make a decision about how aggressive they're willing to be, and puts Tucker in the driver's seat with multiple strong offers to choose from. If you enjoyed this breakdown of the Mets' insane offer and what it means for the Blue Jays' chances of landing Kyle Tucker, smash that like button right now. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't already because we're bringing you daily updates on this story as it develops. Turn on notifications so you're alerted the instant Tucker makes his decision. Share this video with your fellow Blue Jays fans who are probably having panic attacks right now about the Mets offer. Drop a comment with your prediction for where Tucker ultimately signs. And help us grow this community by spreading the word about the channel. The next few days are going to be absolutely crucial for the future of this franchise. Will the Blue Jays step up and match the Mets' aggression? Will Tucker prioritize long-term security over short-term money? Will some mystery team swoop in at the last second? We're about to find out. Stay locked in, stay hopeful, and pray that Ross Atkins and the front office do whatever it takes to get Kyle Tucker in a Blue Jays uniform. This is where championships are won or lost, folks. This is the moment that defines an entire era. Thank you guys for watching. You guys are absolute beasts with your support. Until next time, let's go Blue Jays. Let's land Kyle Tucker. Cheers.